Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. The Bravo team was sent in to investigate, but we lost contact.
Look, Chris!
We continued our search for the other members, and it turned into a nightmare.
The Resident Evil 1 remake is the best Resident Evil game. Now with that hot take out of the way, let's move on. For real, the Resident Evil 1 remake does hold a special place in my heart and is legitimately my favourite game of the entire franchise. It was also the first Resident Evil game that I bought and completed, so from there on I was hooked, and this remake of the original Resident Evil game, the one that started the survival horror franchise off, built on and encapsulates survival horror at its finest. Now don't get me wrong, tank controls are out of date for sure, but the atmosphere and the dread that the halls of the infamous mansion bring to the fore in the remake, it sets the tone for one of the best Resident Evil games of all time. With a cast of unforgettable characters that the fans still love to this day, a compelling story that the remake really fleshed out and built upon from the original Resident Evil on the PlayStation. And the game itself was so well received that they made a prequel, which we discussed last time, which added to the GameCube's ever-growing Resident Evil collection at the time. We're going to delve deep into the story itself and the surrounding lore of Resident Evil 1. The Spencer Mansion was designed and built in the 1960s, completed in 1967, and was designed by world-renowned architect George Trevor. Famous for his, let's say, creative building layouts and specialist motifs, as well as, a large number of secret switches, traps and passageways that I think it's fair to say make navigating the labyrinthian mansion that much more difficult. Spencer commissioned a new construction firm under the nose of George Trevor later on in its development to add a few secrets unbeknownst to him, and one notable addition being a secret pit beneath the art gallery where a tombstone of the name George Trevor was set. Once Spencer no longer had any use for him, he invited George and his family to stay at the mansion, before disposing of George and using his wife Jessica and their daughter Lisa as test subjects for the virus. We know from the letter in the sarcophagus where Jessica's body was left, how the injections slowly warped her brain, as well as her plans to escape, which clearly didn't end well. Their daughter Lisa, well, we all know what happened there. The mansion, this hideaway, this decadent hotel resort in the mountains, was, as we know, a front for Umbrella's research into the progenitor virus. With the underground laboratory beneath the mansion being where Spencer and his glut of scientists and henchmen worked on finding test subjects and exploring the potential of the virus, this was where Spencer hoped would lead him to, well, as he states,
to become a god.
But that was not to be, was it, Wesker?
The right to be a god. That right is now mine.
There are not many characters that are universally loved by everyone in their fandom quite like Albert Wesker. He is and will forever remain the best antagonist of the Resident Evil franchise. His cool, calm and commanding voice, played by the brilliant DC Douglas, sent chills down my spine whenever he made a reappearance in later titles. He's certainly worth more time than the short section of this video, so perhaps a story of video is more fitting for this high class villain. So let's focus on Wesker in the context of the mansion incident. And as we discussed in the last video, Wesker, after discovering the Queen Leech had led an outbreak of the T-Virus, or more specifically the Epsilon strain of the T-Virus, at the underground lab and subsequently the mansion, follows through with orders from senior Umbrella figures to betray Spencer and gather B.O.W. data before escaping the Arklay Mountains. Now Wesker had been under Spencer's watchful gaze since he was a boy, as Albert Wesker was part of the eugenics project created by Oswald Spencer himself, Project W. Now, not to get too into this, but Spencer essentially adopted or stole gifted children from around the world in the hopes that they would bond with the T-Virus at a later stage after infection and develop superhuman abilities, thus advancing the human race. Kind of like Alice in those terrible Resident Evil films. Anyways, after leaving the training facility and killing off the proto-tyrant in the process, Wesker left for STARS HQ and began his task of luring the Alpha team into the mansion. This mission from Umbrella was otherwise known as X-Day. However, for Wesker, this proved to be the perfect opportunity to not just betray Spencer, as per Umbrella's orders, but to betray Umbrella, to fake his death, and to escape. The plan had already begun with his sabotage of Bravo Team's helicopter, and after the events of Resident Evil 0, now he was to lure the STARS members Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Joseph Frost and Brad Vickers to the mansion to gather combat data for the B.O.Ws, collect their samples and destroy the remaining evidence. With a stranglehold over the others as captain of the Alpha team, as well as blackmailing Barry to help him destroy evidence, everything seemed as though it would go according to plan. Enter our protagonists. There's not much that I need to tell you guys about Chris and Jill that hasn't been told before. They are the two most high profile and fan favourite heroes in the Resident Evil universe, #JillBestGirl. And not much at this point in Resident Evil's 25-year history does it need to be retold. However, I'll just add a bit of context for how they reached the mansion and joined up with STARS. So Chris has a background in the Air Force, where he was a weapons expert, and it was also where he met Barry, who scouted him for the STARS unit in Raccoon City. Jill's background was in the army, where she excelled in bomb disposal and lockpicking, and this is where her famous nickname, the Master of Lockpicking, comes from. She was later recruited by Albert Wesker to join the STARS team to help solve serious crimes with a number of other military vets. The STARS, as you might expect, were bankrolled by the US branch of Umbrella, though of course none of them knew this aside from Wesker. Jill became close friends with Barry and Chris within the Alpha team, and in July 1998 would be ordered by their captain to go investigate some bizarre murders in the Arklay Mountains that would change their lives forever. During the mansion incident, Chris would find and work with Bravo team medic and prequel protagonist Rebecca Chambers to help uncover Umbrella's secrets.
I'm sorry.
Jill, in regular contact with compromised Barry, would soon discover Wesker's betrayal of the STARS. Various notes throughout the game had missing pages and names torn out or scratched through, and this was Barry's doing on the threat of his family's death by Wesker. As well as overhearing Barry argue with someone about his family and STARS in the staff boarding house, Jill also wasn't far behind Wesker after seeing Bravo team captain Enrico Marini shot dead in the underground tunnels. Her suspicions by that point in the game were high that someone had betrayed STARS, with Barry at the forefront of her mind. And it isn't until Chris/Jill confront Wesker in the underground lab in front of the T-002 Tyrant that they both learn the truth. Before we reach the conclusion, it would not be right to talk through Resident Evil 1 and not discuss some of the enemies that Chris and Jill face during the game, as there are a wide variety of virus-infected bugs and animals, as well as humans. We all know about the standard zombies: slow, easy to get around, and after a large number of bullets from the samurai edge, they will eventually go down. However, sometimes they get back up. And these are the Crimson Heads, a rare mutation of the T-virus that stays dormant for a time, mutating the body further, making them faster, more agile, and stronger versions of the standard zombie. There was the Cerberus, a T-virus infected Doberman that made these dogs real scary. The Neptune is the code name for the T-virus infected great white shark that we meet underneath the boarding house. Yawn is the iconic code name of the snake, specifically an adder that's injected with an unknown strain of the T-virus that grows to a ridiculous size, and after escaping its researchers, made the entire mansion its new territory. The Chimera are slightly more interesting, and are the result of injecting T-virus infected fly DNA into a human embryo. An Umbrella actually took homeless people to be used as test subjects for this specific project, with this being the unfortunate result. The large spiders found in the mansion's underground, codenamed web spinners, were T-virus infected spiders that could spit venom and grew to a large size, and like most animal test subjects were deemed a failure for their initial purpose, which was to be used in warfare. Finally we come to the Hunter, one of the most iconic B.O.Ws, and one project that was certainly deemed a success, judging by the number of times we see them in the games. Hunters are created by grafting reptilian DNA to a fertilized human embryo with the aid of the T-virus as a bonding agent. They are quick, intelligent, and have powerful claws for ripping apart whoever gets in their way. And then, of course, there's the Tyrant. We talked in the last video about the Proto-Tyrant and how it was deemed a failure due to an overdose of the T-virus, which led to mental degradation. Now the team working on the T-002 model, however, learned from this and perfected this model, which is what we see at the end of the game. The Tyrant project actually outlines two specific types of Tyrant: an infiltration type and a combat type. Take a guess which one this is. Its huge growth and claw on one hand are distinctive features of the combat type, and whilst it can be slow at times, it can jump ferociously to impale its enemies, and we see this firsthand in the final stages of the game. It is in the Tyrant chamber at the game's end that Wesker's plan to betray Umbrella truly begins. With a special virus that he obtained from his good friend William Birkin, prior to the Star's arrival in the Tyrant chamber, he injects himself with this mutant virus strain. Then after the Stars arrive to confront him, he sets off the self-destruct sequence for the lab and the mansion, releases and then orders the T-002 to attack the Stars team, whether you're playing as Chris or Jill. However, apparently due to his T-virus infection, the Tyrant opted to stab Wesker, tossing him to the ground and leaving him for dead before then going after the Stars. And as we of course know from, future games, Wesker survives with newfound powers and then proceeds to escape whilst being chased by numerous B.O.Ws, including Lisa Trevor. The remaining Stars members, Chris, Jill, Rebecca and Barry, however, fight off the Tyrant twice, and thanks to Brad, chicken heart Vickers deciding to actually show up again, they escape in the Alpha Team helicopter after blowing the tyrant to pieces with a rocket launcher. It seems that for the most part, for our heroes, all is well. However, as we know all too well, this is just the beginning of the end for Raccoon City and Umbrella. But certainly more of a start for Wesker, whose plan actually comes off as he hoped. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're slowly making our way through the Resident Evil timeline, one mainline game at a time. I love Resident Evil so much, and whilst it's been talked to death at this point, I want to explore the origins and lore behind it too. So I hope you gained something out of the video, and if you did, leave a like and comment your favourite Resident Evil game. Thanks for watching, have yourselves a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.